What is up, my nerds? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerdy Mind. Look who's back. What's up, Jason? Thanks for coming back, man.
Not much is up. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, man, something we can talk about today is you and I watched the D&D movie. Actually, it was your second time seeing it.
Yes, it was my second time seeing it. Yeah, I mean, you even asked me, you're like, "Oh, the timing's not great. Do you want to watch a different movie?" And I was like, "No, let's see the D&D movie."
Yeah.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Again, similar to when we were talking about the Mario movie. I guess in the last episode, it's one of those movies that anybody could watch. It's entertaining for all ages, you know. There's some really good scenes in there and make you chuckle.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it wasn't like, because I played D&D, it was anything like that. Like I had to go see it a second time. I really enjoyed the movie. So it was definitely one of those things where if you hadn't seen it, I was like, you got to see this. So we'll watch that again. But yeah.
Yeah. And like you're saying how I just got into D&D, I'd say at the end of last year into this year, and to watch the movie, if you don't know what D&D is, or you just want to see a wholesome movie like an action but comedy movie, this is definitely a good one to go see. I love Chris Pine. Chris Pine is hilarious to me, and all his movies at the end, he always has that snarky wittiness to him
Yeah.
that reminds me of myself and my personality. So I love him as an actor.
Yeah.
The overall ragtag team he has to run with, especially like Simon the Sorcerer, who like
Hmm.
has no confidence in himself, but he's like trying
Yeah.
to boost him up the whole
Like
time.
notoriously like not a really good wizard or whatever, but like,
Yeah,
Chris Pine's like his hype man, like, no, you can do
yeah,
anything, just believe in
yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, like one of my favorite scenes, like when he's like, "I told you I can't do it," and they're like, "What do you mean you told him he can't do it?" He's like, "Well, I didn't really think he, I tried to make him believe in himself as much as he
Yeah.
could."
Yeah.
Like it was just real funny, and like one of my favorite scenes is actually in the beginning when he's like telling his story, and he keeps like referencing this one of the council members, like Thomas.
Yeah.
He's like, and he's like
It's
stops so mid,
Jarnathan. He's
yeah,
like,
Jonathan, yeah,
it was so deep and depressing when this happened to me. It changed my life forever. Do we know when Jonathan's gonna be here, by the way? And it's just like,
yeah.
what?
It's like
Cuts
mid
out of it.
conversation, yeah, yeah.
Just cuts back to the room talking to like
Or
council members.
council members, or
Yeah.
yeah, he's like talking about how sad it was, and he like throws it right in there. He's like, Jonathan would really understand this, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, he keeps talking about this dude
Yeah.
who he thinks will understand and help his case.
Yeah.
It was the writing of that was so funny, man,
Yeah.
and it fits his personality so well, how he is as an
Yeah.
actor.
And I definitely have to say, like, the movie as a whole is pretty well balanced because it's not just like, oh, comedic, action, comedic, like that's all it is. Like there are some
Mm-hmm.
parts where you actually get frustrated for the characters. You're
Mm-hmm.
no, like that can't be what's happening right now. Like just like
Yeah.
kind of getting a little bit angry, and then it's like, okay, now they're off doing this thing, and like even like the fight scenes, like the action scenes are really great. Like fighting in close quarters with like random objects and stuff. It's just like all
Mm-hmm.
over the place. But I thought it was really well balanced.
Yeah, and like classic, like talking about fighting, he's a classic, like the main guy who's like smart, right? Who can't fight for crap. Like he
Mm-hmm.
can't fight at all, but he uses his brains and he just takes credit for like beating
Yep.
up characters himself.
Yeah.
Like, like he's like they're in the city, like they're trying to escape or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
He's like trying to cut the bounds that he has,
Yeah.
and
Because
then
like
after like they're all defeated, he's like, "All right, we're doing great."
yeah. So it's like him, the bard, is like tied up, and then like the barbarian's tied up, and then barbarian takes out like 7 people by herself, and then he just like gets the one last smack on someone's head with like after like trying to cut himself free the whole time, and he's like, "We did
Yeah.
it! All right, I knew I had this." It was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, like you didn't know where, and
Yeah.
like it just literally like keeps panning to him, like while the barbarian's like taking out people, it like
Like
just keeps
flipping
panning to
him
him trying
over.
to like
Yeah.
trying to cut his bounds. He's like smiling the whole time,
Yeah.
laughing,
Just
and
like
I'm like, what
just
is?
yeah, just like straight up in the background, like straight up WWE, like SmackDown, like flipping people over and stuff, and
Yeah.
he's just like trying to cut himself free.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It's very funny, and
Mm.
like and I could see where like there was one part where I could see kind of the D&D type of thing
Mm-hmm.
where it's the character it's the it's that like warrior that really I forget his name. I think it's Eunuch Yennik Yender or something like
Oh
that.
gosh, I forget his name, but yeah, I know who you're
Um,
talking
but
about.
he's like a really good warrior, but he's like really like honorable, and
Hmm.
like he's narrating what's gonna happen when they go to a certain place,
Hmm.
and I'm like, he almost sounds like the DM
Yeah.
of like the party, you know? It
So
made it sound
yeah, so
like
that's actually a good a good thing to talk about too, because like again, so for this movie, like if you've played D&D, you're like, oh, I get what's going on, but it's not so in your face that you're like, oh, that was a perception check. Oh, that was that thing. Like, like you don't have to know anything about D&D to watch this movie if you haven't watched it. Like it's just a fun movie. But if you have watched D&D, there's like certain little things like, there's like like you said, for instance, like this situation, it traditionally, like in a game like this, uh if you have an NPC like that guy who's just kind of like helping the party along to like get to their
yeah,
destination, get through this thing, the DM is playing as that NPC. He's like helping you
yeah,
get
yeah,
to wherever you're going because he's playing as the NPC. So like you said, like when you hear the narrator talking, it's him. So it's like, wait, that's the DM. But it's like it's
mm-hmm,
not one of those things where it's like Stranger Things where they're playing the game and you're like hearing what's going on and these are the characters. It's like a real game happening. It's just a movie. It's just like
yeah,
people playing. It's not actually like a D&D game going on and there's like a tabletop in the background. Like
right.
it's but like if you actually think about it, that's what's going on. The NPC is also the DM. He's narrating what's going on. Makes sense. But yeah, no.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and I caught that, and
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, I don't know much about D&D because I kind of just got into it,
Right.
but it was like that was like the one thing I definitely caught. I was like, oh, that's actually very interesting, and like of course he's like one of the strongest characters
Mm-hmm.
in the party,
Right.
and the bard he doesn't like him because he's supposed to be the smart one,
Yeah.
and like
Like
the
the
other
like I think
guys,
like when they finally part ways with him, they're like, "You sure you don't want to come help with us? You're like, you're better at fighting and like strategy and pretty much everything except for talking
yeah,
because he's just like
yeah,
really bad with like analogies and things. He's like, I don't get what you're talking about. Like, he's like so straightforward, like kind of like computer
yeah,
esque, just like I
yeah,
don't get what is that a joke? And so like they're like,
yeah.
no, you're better at everything except talking.
Yeah,
Yeah, gosh,
yeah. It
yeah.
was it was overall. Who was your favorite character in the movie?
That's hard. I usually I tend to pick like the same kind of character. So like the wild
Hmm.
shape, how she can turn into like all kinds of animals. With
Yeah,
my
she's
like
pretty
with my
cool.
background, graduating from college with environmental science and policy, like
Hmm.
I always loved animals and stuff. I'd love going to the zoo more than going to like a theme park or something. Like it's just one of
Sure.
those things where I'm like, she can turn into any animal. Like she turned into an owl
Yeah.
bear. That's like amazing. But like honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if I would just go and pick her this time. I feel like Chris Pine's character, just because it's like again, it's that dynamic of like he's the smart guy that like really doesn't like do any fighting, do any like he kind of can, but like he's just like talking and stuff, and like
Yeah. Yeah.
I make the plan. Well, okay, so you made the plan, so why do we need you anymore? Well, if the plan fails, I make another plan.
Yeah.
So you make
Oh.
plans that fail. Like, it's just like
Yeah. Yeah. To add
no.
on that, that was pretty funny too. Like to add on to that, where he's like I'm the planner, and
Mhm.
like he's like, all right, we have Plan A, and if Plan A goes to shit, we got
Yeah,
Plan B.
and
And
then
like,
plan B.
what happens?
Yeah,
He's
it's
like
like
Plan C.
plan B is going poorly, and they're like, okay, well, plan C. What's plan C? Plan A again.
Back. Yeah, back to
But
Plan A.
why don't we just call that
Why
plan
would you?
A? Well, plan A has a stink on it. It's like
Yeah, it's bad
okay,
juju. We
and
don't
then
we
and
don't
then
talk
like
about that.
later it's like okay, we'll do plan D. What's plan D? Well, plan D is plan B. Like what?
Yeah. What? It was so funny. He's talking about how he makes plans, but he's like, nah, no, we can't call it Plan A or Plan B anymore. It has bad juju. It
Yeah,
didn't go right the first time.
yeah,
It was super funny, man.
no.
So, side note, real quick,
Mhm.
how you were saying how like she was a shapeshifter, right?
Yeah.
And she could shift into other animals. How they implemented that into the movie, like how they did it,
Mhm.
was really unique because one of the shows I watch is Titans
Mhm.
on HBO
Yeah.
Max. and obviously there's Beast Boy in
Yeah.
Titans,
Hmm.
and how they did the shapeshifting in Titans was very poor compared to how they did it in this movie.
Okay.
I feel like that, like how, because I know this is a side note, but like it kind of made me upset because Beast Boy should already like know how to transform into like a bunch of different animals,
Yeah.
but he could only transform into one, and then he learns how to do like one other, and then one other, and like I'm so used to the cartoon where he's like he could just
Yeah.
shapeshift into all the animal
He's
kingdom.
like an elephant, and then he's like a seal, and then he's a T Rex,
Yeah,
and then just like back and
yeah,
forth, back and forth. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, and like it took him like forever to kind of like shapeshift into the animal, not
Hmm.
like kind of instantaneous. Whereas D&D, she's like she can shapeshift into
Yeah, in
anything
a matter of like a second or two,
a second.
she's like a fly, she's a
Mm-hmm.
snake, whatever. And it's not one of those
Yeah.
things where she's just like constantly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's like a good chase scene where she's like a fly to a mouse, back to a fly to a bird, like, and it's like she
Mm-hmm.
is constantly changing, but it's one of those things where it's like already a really stressful situation. She's just trying to get the heck out of there. You kind of understand why she's just like switching forms so quickly. You'd imagine
And
it wouldn't be
and
like that all the time.
yeah, and like how they did it, like depending on what she transformed into, actually helped her situation.
Yeah.
Like it was very strategic on how she was doing. Like
Hmm.
she was a mouse escaping from the guards, gets out the window, and then like turns into a hawk,
Yeah,
and
it's like
then like
okay,
to try to fly away.
now she's jumping out of like a parapet, like she turns into a hawk. That makes sense. Like let's fly
Mm-hmm.
away. Now there's
Yeah,
arrows flying at me. Like I got to get out of here. And then she's like on the
yeah,
ground. She's whatever. Like it makes sense. Yeah, it helps
yeah,
the
yeah,
situation. Yeah.
yeah. I would like I could see she was one of my favorite characters too.
Hmm.
But like I said, Chris Pine, just his wittiness was mine.
Yeah.
But then Simon was my second favorite because of how like down in the dumps he was about himself,
Yeah.
and like it
And
was
like
pretty funny.
it's one of those traditional like I guess themes where it's like he doesn't believe in himself, and then he ends up believing in himself and is like way better, and like oh he always could do this, he just didn't believe in himself. But like just the whole arc of him like not believing in himself is just like getting screwed over constantly and stuff. And people are like, come on, Simon, like, why can't you do this? He's like, I told you I couldn't do this. Like, what are you talking
Yeah,
about? Like,
yeah. That again, that comes into the wittiness of Chris Pine. He's like, "Come on, Simon, you could do this." He's like, "I told you I couldn't do this." He's like,
uh,
"What? What do you mean?" He's like looking around. He's like, "What do you mean?"
yeah,
He's
what
like,
do you
"Ah,
mean
you
you told
never
me?
said this."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like, with you being experienced with D&D, how do you think the movie compared? Like, I know it's a movie,
So what I will
but
say
it
is
is.
a lot of my background with D&D, it's like very like unofficial. So like
Mhm.
ever so my oldest brother is 7 years older than me, and so like ever since I was like I don't know, like six maybe, he would do
Mhm.
these RPGs with me. That's what we called them. It was like a D&D campaign where he'd make me make a character. He'd give me like this is the world, this is the map. He'd even like maybe draw a map on a notebook to show me, and he just kind of
Right.
walk me through what's going on, like as if he was the DM and I'm playing. But we're not like sitting at a table. Like we've done this on vacations where like we're out somewhere and he's just like,
Sure.
oh, guy jumps out of the bushes, what do you do? And to roll a d20, like he'd pick a number, I'd pick a number, and he'd count from his to mine. So it'd be like, out of 20, like I picked 12, he picked four, so that's an eight. Like, oh crap, whatever. So like
Mhm.
it was kind of like unofficial. In the last couple
Mm.
years, we've done a little bit of D&D with him. My wife and I did a campaign with him a little bit. So, I would say just comparatively to just everything I've done, like it very much does, stay on track with what D&D is.
Mhm.
But like I said, they did a very good job of making it like anybody could watch this. Like a lot of people when the Game of Thrones TV show came out, they weren't into like reading these books that they could maybe consider nerdy or whatever. Like, oh, it's all fantasy stuff. Like I don't care about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
TV show came out, everybody was watching it. It didn't
Yeah.
matter if you weren't into that kind of thing, you were into it. You watch this movie, you don't have to be like, oh, I, play D&D with my friends every Tuesday night. You could have never played D&D. You don't even have to know what D&D is. Like you said, it's like an action comedic kind of movie, wholesome, like anybody could watch it. So
Yeah.
I think if you look at some of the things that happen, how the characters, make their decisions, all that kind of stuff, you can say, oh, that was a perception check. I see that. Got it. Oh, that's cool. Um, but like it doesn't it's not so apparent that like it's in your face.
Yeah, and I can see what you're saying because like my wife, she doesn't understand D&D. She's not like full into the whole nerd scene. So for her to come into the movie with us and
Hmm.
watch it,
Hmm.
and then for her to just laugh her ass off and just enjoy an actual movie,
Yeah.
like because she just saw it as a action movie,
Hmm.
she really enjoyed it. She told
Yeah.
me last night, she's like, I really, really like that movie.
Hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, they actually did a good storytelling esque movie, but
Right.
it is based off of a nerdy thing.
Right.
So yeah. Trying to think.
So
Um,
actually, going off of your question, I just was thinking
yeah.
about a couple things. So you said, how does it compare to D&D? So there are a couple little things that I could point out too, just like having a little bit of like background knowledge about D&D. So owl
Yeah.
bears, like she turns into that owl bear thing. That's
Right,
actually a
right.
traditional D&D character or like character, a creature, that
Mhm.
like pops up in like the early D&D games and stuff. Like you'd like go around
Mhm.
a corner, there's an owl bear. Like you don't know what that is, but like now that it's been around for so long, people know, oh, an owl bear, got it. There was also, I don't know if you can remember when they're in the, that maze, that whole like thing where they're fighting for their lives, and there's like two other groups of people with them.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a group that they kept kind of showing where like, when they got to like the cage at the end, they were gonna get in the cage, but they're like, wait, no, we're not gonna do this. The group that was in
Mhm.
the cage, all of their outfits and stuff, there
They
was
look
a
like
TV.
D&D.
So yeah, so there was a TV show in like the 80s or something, I believe, 80s, 90s. It's like a cartoon, and
Mhm.
they're dressed exactly like the characters from that show. So as I was walking
Oh.
out of the theater the first time, somebody was saying something about that, and I was like, that's interesting. I looked into it. The exact same like characters, like the wizard with the pointy hat, and like it's just like it looks so like stereotyped like D&D
Yeah.
people. That's because it's exactly what it was. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like they were putting things from the games like into the. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, like when I watched it, it it almost looked like they were like they kind of looked out of place at first because they looked like
Right,
they were
right,
cosplaying.
right. Yeah, they look like
I was
cosplayers or
like,
something. Yeah,
yeah, I was like, what the hell? I was like, they look like they're just cosplay. They don't look like traditional costumes like they would have
yeah,
in the movie.
yeah.
Um, I also noticed like they had the treasure chest, that treasure
Mm-hmm.
chest that came to life. I've
Yeah, it's
seen
a
that in the
mimic.
books
Mm-hmm.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
the
that's a
mimic. Yeah.
mimic. So if you've ever played like Dark Souls and stuff, they have that in there. But that's something that like comes from D&D too. Is like a mimic is basically like almost like a carnivorous like creature, but it like disguises itself as anything. So like if you're playing
Mm-hmm.
D&D, a lot of times if your DM is kind of a jerk to you or like you're getting on his nerves, sometimes it'll be like, you found this awesome sword, and you're like, awesome, and you go to pick it up and it tries to bite you. Like it could be anything, but like oftentimes if it's like a chest, you're like, wow, I'm gonna open the chest. You're not expecting when you open the chest it's gonna try to bite your head off. Like so like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they're like, oh, people are taking things out of chests in that scene, like you said, and then they go to open it and it like tries to like eat whoever, it's like, oh, but that's one of those things where like if you've played D&D or whatever, you're like, that's a mimic, like, oh, cool.
Yeah. And what was I'm not even gonna lie. Some of the scenes were actually pretty intense, like
Hmm.
kind of like it made me jump a lot.
Yeah.
Some of them,
Hmm.
because I'm a wuss when it comes to like horror movies. My sister loves them. And even my little niece
Hmm.
who's 4. I don't know what she's gonna turn into because she loves horror movies already. She like
Oh
has no
no.
problems going to sleep. Yeah. And I'm like, what are you turning this child into? Because you're creeping me out. And I get scared. So like when they had like those panthers that were like running
Hmm.
around, dude,
Yeah.
and they had like that power to like make them
Yeah,
have
it was like
hologram.
holograms of like
Yeah.
themselves, so they're like freaking people
Yeah.
out as like where they are. Yeah. Hmm.
And like maybe it was just the loudness of the movies, but like them jumping out of like nowhere and like attacking someone scared
Yeah.
the crap out of me.
Yeah.
The undead scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Like when they
Yeah.
had the red smoke and like the best, like the best warrior
Oh, you're
in the
talking about, yeah, when he was like running, he's like a child. There's a scene and
yeah.
he's like, friends turned on friends, parents turned on children, and like his parents are running
Hmm.
behind him. They get caught in the smoke. And he turns around, he's like, "Where are you?" And they like jump out at you. He's like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh." Yeah.
Dude, I was so terrified. I was like, oh my god. I was
Because
like,
it
I didn't
was
know what was trying to.
because it was the second time that I watched the movie. Like I knew like what to expect at certain scenes, but like the first
Yeah.
time for sure, things like that caught me off guard. I like jumped a little bit in my seat. I was like, "Oh
Hmm.
my gosh."
I
Yeah.
know. I was like, geez, I wasn't expecting to like watch a thriller along with a
Yeah.
comedy,
Yeah.
but yeah. I'm trying to think what else. Uh, I mean, overall, I think the movie was really, really great. I
Hmm.
haven't seen what the critics are giving this movie.
I haven't either.
Um, but it doesn't matter. I hope.
No.
Cole Harley, go watch the movie. You'll love it. You'll find Chris Pine's humor very funny.
Yeah.
Simon's depressingness very funny as well. But go watch the movie. But hey, another movie that's coming out that I'm pretty excited for is Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Chris Pratt and his humor is what I think makes that. Well, you got Drax too, where it's similarly kind of like how this movie was.
Mm-hmm. Before we jump into that real quick, I'm curious. What would you rate the D&D movie 10? Because I know we did that on the Mario movie, and I'm just
Mm,
like, I'm curious how you're thinking about it.
um, out of 10, um, I would give it either an eight, probably a
Mhm.
solid eight,
Okay.
almost a nine, I
Okay.
would say.
That's what I was saying. I was talking to my wife earlier, and I was like, I feel like I would say almost a nine. Like I could say a nine, but I feel like eight, 8.5 out of nine. Like
Yeah,
out of nine, out of 10. I think that's like a solid thing because I was like thinking back to the Mario movie. Like I really enjoyed the Mario movie. I think this was slightly better. It's still one of those
yeah,
things that appeals to anybody. It's still really funny and everything, but it's a little bit better. So yeah, I was gonna say like almost a nine, like 8.5 maybe if I could do that. Yeah.
yeah. I would give it a solid eight, 8.5.
Okay.
Like I said, it's definitely close to nine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what could make it a nine. I'm trying to think what I would say would make it a nine. See now
I think one of those things is like the trope that's going on through the whole movie. Like I get it's like his motivation and stuff, but like Chris Pine's like whole thing of like these bad guys, I need to take them down because they killed my wife. Like I got it, but like every so often in the movie there'd be like a thing where it's like, oh, he used to be one of them. And he's like, I can't trust this guy. And you're like, for a second, you're like, why? Like, oh, right, because they killed your wife. Like it's like they kind of like left it behind for a really long time, and then
yeah,
they kind of bring it
yeah,
back a couple times, and you're like, right, that's his motivation. It's not as like it should be very compelling, and it kind of is at the very beginning, but then throughout the
yeah,
movie you kind of forget it. And so it's like there's certain things
yeah.
where like you know I guess making that more of an undertone through the whole movie might have been a little much, but like
Hmm.
I don't know how they could have reworked that, but I did notice myself kind of like realizing like, oh right, that's why he can't trust this guy. Got it. Okay. They did actually have to bring that up when like everyone was gonna disband, and he's like, they killed my wife. They did these things. It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
that's why he's like so heartbroken. Right. Like so, it, like kind
yeah,
of brings you back into it, but like the fact you forgot that like that's his main motivation, it's like, but
yeah. And also with it being it is a good movie and a good
mhm,
story, but it seems like the classic cliche. I don't want to badmouth the movie, but it's kind of
no,
classic cliche. Like hero gets turned on, like kind of gets betrayed by a friend,
yeah,
and the friend manipulates someone of that person's love, and then blah 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 it goes from there, and then they end up winning in the end, anyways.
right,
It was
yeah,
I guess that's why I kind of give it an eight because it was kind of predictable
yeah.
to me.
Hmm.
But again, great movie. I
I would
loved
say,
it.
but like in the grand
Yeah,
scheme of things, an 8 out of 10 is like nothing to scoff at. Like that's still a movie that like you should probably go see in theaters if you have the time. 8 out of 10.
yeah,
But like yeah, I thought it was kind of like 8.5. It didn't really hit that 9 mark for me, but yeah. And like you were saying, to transition back again, Guardians of the Galaxy. That's another exciting thing just because of Chris Pratt having that same kind of like Chris Pine, Chris Pratt, Ryan Reynolds kind of like
yeah,
silly,
yeah.
goofy, but like action star kind of thing going on. Like it's yeah,
And then you got like Drax, who's like the super serious one. He can't
yeah,
understand sarcasm.
yeah.
Just like how it was in D&D, like
Mm-hmm.
the really
Polga,
good warrior couldn't, yeah, he
yeah.
couldn't understand, yeah.
Mhm. Oh no,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I'm a big Guardians of the Galaxy fan. It's actually one of the Marvel movies I actually like watching
Mm-hmm.
because of how Chris Pratt is. It's really funny.
Yeah,
Oh, sounds like you
I
got a helicopter coming over your place.
I think that actually is a helicopter. Yeah, no, you're right.
At first I was like, I think you have an earthquake happening.
But yeah, so I will say Guardians of the Galaxy. I do really enjoy that franchise. I mean, I want to say like the first movie I really enjoyed. The second one was like it was okay. I did know that storyline because I do have a little bit of background with Marvel stuff, but like I don't know. I feel like anytime I think about Guardians of the Galaxy, I just think about the first one. I don't think about like the Avengers, what is it, Endgame or
Yeah.
whatever, where they come in like
Mhm.
or like when they meet Thor or anything. I just think about the first one. But
Yeah.
like throughout them too, like again, me being like a nature kind of guy, I always loved Groot because he's just like
Yeah.
he's a tree person. That's awesome. But also
Yeah.
he's just like he only says one thing. And like seeing
Mhm.
him as like big badass Groot and then seeing him as little baby Groot and then like
Mhm.
teenager Groot, which is just like, really like weird too, because he just got like the voice
Yeah.
crack kind of thing going on and everything.
Yeah.
Like I do really think they do a good job also with like the, balancing like the action with the comedic and everything. And it's like they're a
Mhm.
family, but they're also all really weird and different from each other. Like
Yeah.
yeah, no, I really do enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy.
And this is gonna be the last one
Mm-hmm.
of this. I mean, not guard. They will never be Guardians of the Galaxy ever. But I mean, with
Mm-hmm.
this crew, from what
Yeah.
I've
Mm-hmm.
been told, is like this is the we won't see Chris Pine as a Star
You
Lord,
Chris Pratt.
and I mean Chris Pratt. Yeah, what I said, Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Too many Chris's in Hollywood, man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Chris Pratt won't be Star Lord unless, from what I've seen, they're like, will you readapt, the Star Lord thing? He's like, it's got to make sense for me.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, right now. I think he's just done with it. Maybe
Yeah.
he just wants to do some other things.
Yeah. No, I get
Um,
that.
and so I'm excited. I kind of want to rewatch Guardians of the Galaxy. What kind of sucks for me because I fell off the whole Marvel thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that because they all play off each other, like all the movies. So
Right.
like I don't know like how this. If I go watch this movie, I probably will feel lost a little bit because.
Yeah. So that's one of those things where Marvel has done a good job, like we said, I think the last episode about making like a cohesive universe.
Hmm.
They've also done a good job in each of their movies where like you can watch the movie without having context from like the most recent Marvel movie. Like if you remember what the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie touched on, like they kind of draw from that so you know what's going on. But I mean with Avengers and everything like that, like I haven't seen a Marvel movie in a while. I guess like Doctor Strange or I don't remember what the most recent one I saw was because I always pretty much see them when they come out in theaters. But like
Hmm.
I get what you're saying. Like not having seen a lot of them recently and stuff, like you might feel like out of place at the beginning. I feel like if you see it, you're still gonna like you're not gonna feel like super lost, but it is kind of nice to
Hmm.
have that context because you're like, oh, that's why they're doing this because of that thing that happened. Like, having some kind of background on it. But again, it being a big expansive universe, like you have to keep up on every single franchise to like have context for everything. So
Yeah, because Gamora, I think the last movie I seen when in I think the Avengers was Gamora died.
mm-hmm.
She wasn't alive.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, but I mean the movie's been out for a long time, so
Yeah.
Gamora died, but I see in like the trailer she comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hope they kind of like explain that, like
Mm-hmm.
or they explain that she did die and then now she's back,
Mm-hmm.
blah blah blah, like have like a we call it like a cutscene where they kind of go back in time a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So, because like you said, like if people would just like who just like Guardians of the Galaxy, but they don't really care for Captain America or Iron Man or just the
Mm-hmm.
Avengers, they just like Guardians of the Galaxy because they're not really that big of Marvel fans.
Right.
It's going to be a little confusing.
Yeah.
Um, like me.
Yeah,
So
there's definitely things like that happened in the Avengers movies and stuff like that where like it ties into each of these franchises and like if you didn't keep up on that, if you didn't keep up on certain things. So yeah, I mean like even like the Doctor Strange movie was like the whole idea was that like there's an entire multiverse out there of like you know, infinite numbers of Doctor Stranges and, bad guys and whatever. And so it's like one of those things where it's like it could be a different multiverse, or like all that kind of stuff. So it's, you know, I, there's a lot going into it. I personally have not, again, like I haven't really been caught up with them. Like I've watched them, but I don't really have them all fresh
mhm.
in my mind. So like I'm thinking like, did she get brought back at the end of one of the Avengers, like the Avengers Endgame or whatever? Because like
Right.
the whole thing with the time stone and like all that kind of stuff. Like, did they like rewind things? Did they bring her back to life with the soul stone? I don't really remember. But again, like you said, if you've only really been watching one franchise, it might throw you out of the loop. Like, wait, I thought she died, you know. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean that's the one thing that's cool about a cohesive universe. Like you can tie everything together.
Mhm.
But I think that's like one also the caveats to it because like
Right.
if you're not really into like the whole thing,
Mhm.
you kind of have to watch the whole thing to
It's yeah,
understand.
it's like it's if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, it's like, the Harry Potter franchise. There was like 7 books. But like at the same time, if you want to talk about this being a cohesive universe or whatever, it's like there's like 30 individual movies or whatever that make up this franchise. And so is it like
Mm-hmm.
almost like a series with like 30 movies? Like that's more than the Fast and the Furious movies. Like that's way too much to
Yeah.
keep track of. Like so, if you're thinking about it as all being intertwined, you have to watch all of them to be able to get context. Like that's too much. But
Yeah.
I do think they do a good job of not making it too overwhelmingly like you have to have seen this in order for this to make sense. But, wanting that context is like, I want it, but I don't want to watch all the movies. So I'll just be a little confused. It's kind of sometimes kind of sucks to have to deal with that. But yeah.
Yeah. And but I mean it's pretty interesting because like I mean this is the final one, so I'm really interested in where they're gonna take the
Hmm.
story or like
Yeah.
how they're gonna do it. Because I've never read the comics of Guardians Galaxy. The movies were like the first introducing them to
Hmm.
me. So
Yeah.
it's
I
pretty
mean,
interesting.
I didn't really have a lot of background contacts with Guardians. Like I had I think read like a comic at some point, and like I knew
Mm-hmm.
about Groot, I knew about Rocket, I knew about Star Lord. I knew about Drax's background because I think in the comics, Drax's background is actually more related to Thanos because I think Thanos is the reason why his family was dead or whatever. So like, there's
Yeah.
actually more
Okay.
driving force of Drax wants to kill Thanos. But like there was like little bits and pieces I knew, but like as a whole and like where their storyline was going and them all interacting together and stuff like that was new to me. So like seeing it, like I kind of had some background on the characters, but I was like, it was really cool at the time because like if you think about Iron Man, Captain America, like the movies that were coming out or whatever, it's like action packed about this character, follow this
Mm-hmm.
character's journey, and then this was like a bunch of random people come together and make a crew, like all right, that's interesting, you know?
Yeah, and from what I found out, that I think Guardians Galaxy was like one of their like side things, like
Hmm.
side projects in Marvel world. Like not many people knew unless you were like a dead ass Marvel fan,
Yeah.
then you knew about Guardians Galaxy, but like not many people knew. So like
Yeah,
for
no,
them to
yeah.
bring it out,
Yeah, and
like out of
it's again, it's one of those things where it's like, the corporate team, if they're really left in charge of all the decisions, would they have been like, no, we're not gonna put this movie out there because nobody's gonna want to watch it because, nobody's read these comics. Like it's very, very niche, group or whatever. But then you put it out there and like there are people that are like, I don't really want to watch the Captain America, I don't want to watch the Iron Man. I want to watch Guardians of the Galaxy because they're funny. Like, you do
yeah.
have people that just want to watch that, particular franchise. And from what I've heard, the new movie is like a different, like different vibe going for it than like the other ones.
How
Um,
what do you mean?
like I don't know. I remember when I was like hearing from friends and stuff that had seen it, that they were like, it felt different than the other ones, like not in a bad way. It felt
Okay.
like they were taking a different approach, which
Hmm.
was like cool. And like based on like the trailers, the limited like trailers and stuff I saw for it, I was like, they're like all in like colored, like pastel colored, like um spacesuits like jumping across like a landscape or whatever. And I was like, what the heck
Hmm.
is going on? Like that is not how I picture them at all. But like again, that could be kind of leading into whoever told me like it's kind of a different approach, there's like different kind of
Hmm.
things going on. Like that's cool, if it's slightly different, then you're not feeling like you're just watching the same movie over and over again, Like some people could make the case with like Iron Man or something, like it feels like the same thing, he builds a suit, fights the bad guy, whatever, like it's different bad guy, whatever. I like the
Hmm.
movies. I don't really care
Yeah.
if something's repeated, same kind of storylines
Yeah.
repeated. But like I could get that like case, and if you're kind of changing it up, maybe you want people to go out and watch it because it's different. Who knows?
Yeah, and I for us nerds, it's gonna hurt for a little bit though. At least I don't know yet. I mean, it's still early to tell. Do you know much about the Writers Guild of America?
A little bit. I did hear about some stuff that was going on with them, but I did not read into it too
Yeah,
much.
so there's a strike going on with their union and Hollywood. So it just means so here's the article I was reading off of IGN. It says meaning thousands of Hollywood writers will be leaving the office in favor of the picket line. So what exactly does the strike mean for consumers? From what I was seeing, uh, they were talking about like the late shows like Stephen Colbert, Jimmy
Hmm.
Kimmel Live, The Tonight Show. I mean, those late night shows might take a heavy hit
Hmm.
because I mean those shows are done or written like I guess sometimes like the night before or
Oh yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Me personally, and this may sound a little messed up. I don't really care about the late night shows. I don't really watch them. I'm not that big into them.
I would always see like on YouTube and stuff like not Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, like things like whatever like karaoke kind of things, like mashups and stuff. And it's like it's always interesting, but I've never just like sat down and watched those like episodes or like watched those
Yeah,
shows ever, like
yeah,
just to watch them. Oh, I gotta watch, like SNL. Like I see all the bits and stuff from SNL. Maybe I've watched like two or three actual episodes when they're airing, but like normally I just like watch it on YouTube or something. So like
yeah.
yeah, like
So like they were talking about like, well, what's gonna? So I more care about like the streaming services. Like, what is it gonna mean for streaming?
right.
And so streaming platforms. They were talking about like Marvel, Star Wars, like Disney Plus.
Hmm.
So it seems like uh, Star Wars stuff won't be delayed. Anything that they have already prepared,
Hmm.
they have scripts for,
Right.
like Loki, Ahsoka, and all them that they already have things ready to go production
Hmm.
wise. They're going to continue on.
Okay.
They're not going to have any issues. Um, One thing that I was interested in, House of the Dragon.
Hmm.
I love House of the Dragon.
Hmm.
They already started filming that, so it looks like it'll be fine.
Okay.
But the concern was so House of the Dragon I watch, the Ring of Power, Lord of the Rings Ring of Power I
Hmm.
watch.
Hmm.
The
Me
scripts have already
too.
been made,
Hmm.
but what they were concerned about is like say uh actor gets hurt on the set and they need to do like rewrites or
Hmm.
something, they
Yeah.
won't be able to do rewrites. So that will halt the show because of the whole strike. Because they people that are writers on the sets play a big part for like, oh well, this character or the actor got hurt, so we need to like write this into the script real quick to like
Hmm.
kind of make sense.
Right.
And so it's pretty interesting about what's going on. In this day and age, it kind of sucks because I see Hollywood likes to have a firm grip on stuff,
Hmm.
and I think it's the last time there was a writing strike was in like 2007, 2008,
Hmm.
and it lasted like 100 days, which is a long time
Yeah.
for content.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can like come to a like collective decision
Hmm.
soon
Yeah.
because it's gonna be hard for like me
Yeah. I
who
was to
wants
say
to
for
create a.
anybody like that's I mean like yeah, like you said, for you, if you're basing some of your episodes and stuff off of things that are coming out, but for like the average person, you might be thinking like, oh, it's a strike, whatever, it doesn't impact me, I don't really care.
Mm-hmm,
But again, like you were saying, like most people, at least I might not be speaking from statistics, but I would imagine most people aren't really watching cable anymore. If they are impacted, like you said, maybe with the late night shows and stuff. But a lot of people use streaming service, and
mm-hmm,
they watch things through Netflix, through Amazon Prime, through whatever it is. And like you said, if some of these shows might be impacted, maybe it doesn't seem like it yet, maybe they will be. But there's so many things where it's like, oh, I really like this show. There's another season that's going to come out in like a couple months, a year. Like I can wait, whatever. But you don't realize like this could be impacting that thing. Like I used to watch The Witcher. They were saying about like a new
mm-hmm.
season. Like you said, House of the Dragon. I watched. That Ring of Power. Like anything that I was watching where like the season ended. and they're like
Yeah.
making the next season, that could be impacted right now. So like it is something to keep in mind. You know, some of these things that you're waiting for, you might be like might not be adamantly waiting like, you know, it's supposed to come out in 3 days. Like I'm gonna watch it in 3 days, but it could just be like it's supposed to come out in a couple months. Might be in the back of your mind, but like that couple months could be like a year now or something. You don't know how
Yeah.
long it's gonna be that until they
And
get it up and running.
say like, okay, we get lucky with House of the Dragon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's written,
Mm-hmm.
they go shooting,
Yeah.
everything goes fine. Okay, so we get House of the Dragon. But I watched Ring of Power. Say Ring of Power doesn't get as lucky and
Mm-hmm.
something happens. And
Right.
now I gotta wait for this bullcrap with Hollywood
Mm-hmm.
not to pay their writers a livable wage.
Right.
So that way I can have content to talk about or watch in general, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan and I
Yeah.
want to finish Ring of Power. It just kind of weird to me though, like in the day of age that we are in, where
Mm-hmm.
uh, Hollywood doesn't want to pay one of their
Yeah.
biggest part, like
I mean, in the grand scheme of
categories,
things,
money.
it's there's there's always been a long running thing of like everybody in every industry is like, I can't believe I'm not getting paid X amount of money because I feel like I do a lot for this business, this industry, whatever the case. And oftentimes that is true. But like you said, like, it's not like Hollywood is like this, small industry that like does some things that are kind of important. Like
Mm-hmm.
so many people watch TV shows. There's so much money going into TV shows, movies. They
Yeah.
make so much money off of these things that you would imagine, yes, we got to pay the actors a lot of money because, they're famous, they got all this stuff attached to them, to their name, their brands, whatever. But like the people that are actually writing the show so that the actors can act out the scenes should be paid
Mm-hmm.
a living wage, you would imagine. And based off of all the money that these industries bring in, you'd imagine that like that's doable. But here we are.
Yeah. And I know, and it's not like Hollywood's like a mom and pop shop. Like
No.
me as like a working like as a blue collar, I started out with like a family business,
Mm-hmm.
and like for me to ask for more money, it's kind of hard because everything is done, by how many jobs we get
Right.
and blah blah blah. So they kind of have a low like overhead. There's not much they can really provide. But this is Hollywood. I mean, it is Hollywood. It is like that top tier you can really go,
Mm-hmm.
and you're saying you don't have enough money to pay the people, the
Mm-hmm.
category of people who create this stuff for you.
Right.
It's just weird to me. I don't understand like how that works. But hopefully it gets ended soon.
Yeah.
Because then we don't have to worry about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be interesting how it unfolds
Mm-hmm.
right now. Uh,
Yeah.
what's funny is you last time we were talking about anime,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been watching a lot more of One Punch Man, and one thing that was interesting to me is that like I wanted to ask, I don't have you finished the season, like the 2 seasons of One
I
Punch Man?
believe so. Yeah. Whatever was out when I was watching, which was like, I don't know, a couple
Season
years
one and
ago or
two.
whatever. I think it
Yeah.
was season 1 too. Yeah.
Well, I think they finally announced that season 3 is coming,
Okay.
so which is pretty nice. I always wonder, does Saitama ever get like credit for his heroism and stuff like that?
That's difficult, especially like we said, like there's such a long running gag that like
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't get credit for anything, and like even like sometimes he just doesn't want credit. He just walks away because he just wants to go home or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really think so. I think by the end of it, there are like other heroes that are like now aware this guy is really powerful. Like how the heck did he do that? But I still don't think like the organization that like runs all these heroes is actually like aware of anything by the end of it. I don't believe so.
Okay. Because like where I left off with like he was fighting the like the alien race that
Hmm.
comes to Earth, because
Yeah.
he's like they predicted that there was a strongest warrior
Hmm.
across the galaxy, so he comes to, like fight him,
Hmm.
and he's actually pretty strong, and
Yeah.
he whoops his butt. But like he they're all trying to like do things on the ground, and like they're fighting like this one like villain, and like they're struggling against him.
Hmm.
Um
Is that the big
and
like
like
centipede thing or something? I don't remember.
sort of, yeah, he
Yeah.
can regenerate, like he
Yeah.
can regenerate his, yeah. And like the Blizzard, I forget her name,
Hmm.
is like shooting like rockets and stones and stuff at the ship, and they're like, you're doing it, like you're making it tilt and stuff like that. But it's
It's
actually
like just him
Saitama who's
fighting.
inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Saitama inside, like killing everyone,
Yeah.
and like on top of the ship fighting the other guy who's like
Yeah.
making things happen.
Yeah.
And like when it finally crashes and like he does all the heavy lifting,
Hmm.
she's like, "What?" They keep doing the ranking thing that kind of messes
Yeah.
me up. Like they're
Hmm.
like, you're a C ranker. Like
Hmm.
what are you doing here? Like you didn't do anything."
Right.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about? He just
Yeah.
like did this most epic thing ever."
Yeah.
And like and but it's funny though because I mean I think that's the point. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
getting frustrated for
it's
him.
like it's a trope. Like the whole point of it
Mhm.
is like he's like the unrecognized hero, but at the same time, it's like it can get annoying to see that happen over and over and over again throughout the whole thing. But like it's this long running trope. Like it's on purpose. This is what they're doing. I get it. It's still frustrating the whole time though, because you're like, it's bizarre. Like again, like to try to like relate it to anybody that hasn't watched this show. It's like literally like Superman, who's like supposed to be like the epitome of like the strongest person, can do anything. Like
Mhm.
this man can kill anything with one punch. Like gigantic monster that like could kill like every hero in this group. He just punches it one time, it's dead. Like it's
Yeah.
ridiculous, and he never gets any credit. And people think like whoever like freaking like Green Arrow or someone is like the epitome
Yeah.
of like this is the strongest person ever. It's like
Mhm.
no, he's not. Like he might be
Yeah.
a good hero. People might like him. I get it, but like he's not. Like he really is not. Like it's just like ridiculous that the entire show he's just doing these crazy things, and you're watching him like take everything out, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then it's just like they're like, what are you doing here? Get out of here. It's like, all right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it was just funny though, because like when the ship crashes, he like blasts his way through, and he's just like walking out,
Yeah.
and like the girl's like, "What are you doing here? You're a C ranker. You didn't do anything." Blah blah. And he just like walks past her,
Yeah.
and she's like, "What the hell?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, Genos, what's up, man?" And
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Master, like,
Yeah.
did you successfully take down blah blah blah?" He's like, "Yeah, man, it was easy."
Yeah.
He's like, and, and she's like, "Don't ignore me. I'm an
Yeah.
S rank." Blah blah.
Are
And
you
he's
talking
just
about
like,
it's like
he's
the
going,
chick with like the green hair that's like always like
yeah,
yeah, she's like
yeah,
super annoying. She's like, no, I'm
yeah,
better than you. Acknowledge me. And it's
yeah,
like so anyway, like I was fighting this guy and
yeah,
I did kill him with one punch, which was a little disappointing because I was hoping for a bigger fight. It's like just ignoring like the chick that's like supposed to be way higher ranked than you. It's like
uh huh.
I don't care.
Also, like the humor of the show too, where he's like, okay, I'm going to actually use my power, and he's like, a flurry of regular punches.
Yeah.
And, and he starts like beating him up with like just like regular punches, and
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, that's his attack? It's
Yeah.
called regular punches.
This is like the only way I can do any kind of special move is to just not do my normal punch. Like I just got to do
Yeah,
like weaker things.
yeah. And then he's like, and then he's like, all right, you're gonna do your special, I'm gonna do my special. It's like serious punch, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I'm like, that's your special, serious punch. I'm like, it's just
Oh.
it like you said, it's a trope that is supposed to play off of like something funny, and it
It's
is
just
pretty
one of those
funny.
things where it's like this is stupid, but I'm having a great time. Like not to get like too into things, but we were watching the D&D movie and our wives
Hmm.
were like giggling and stuff and just like having fun with each other. I was talking to my wife, I was like, what are you guys talking about? She's like, I don't remember. It's always like the just dumb like stuff you're just laughing about that's like the funniest that like literally
Hmm.
someone could be like, what were you laughing about? And you're like, I don't know. Like and it's just like this show is the epitome of that. It's just like I'm just having a great time because this is so ridiculously stupid and funny. Like I just, just watching him again, like even just the action of him killing something in one punch, like you're not like, whoa, you're just like, like what? Like
Yeah.
this guy's been like talking up his monologue for 20 minutes and then he's like, are you done? He's like, yeah, let's fight. And he's just like, dink, dead. It's just
Yeah,
like, what?
yeah, or like the guy like goes on like this long tangent. He's like, "Are you done yet,
Yeah.
dude?" He's
Like
like,
I
"I've
got
been."
He's like, I'm hungry. I want to go home. Can we just fight already? It's like, all right,
Yeah,
let's do this. Dead. Like, okay, I'm gonna go home now.
yeah.
What?
And I still love the scenes where he finally meets the King. When
Mhm.
he finally meets King, and like he finds out King isn't like anything,
Just like
but they still like play video games together
yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah, just like King's like typical anime reaction of like, oh, I hope he doesn't figure out that I don't have powers. And like after everything shakes down, he's just like, whatever. This king guy's pretty cool. Let me play video games with him. It's like,
Yeah.
all right,
And he's like, or there was this one scene in there where he steals King's handheld video game and he's like
mm,
playing it, and like someone interrupts him by like knocking on his door, and he saves. He's like, oh no, I overwrit King's
yeah,
file that I actually borrowed his game
yeah,
without him knowing.
yeah.
He's like, I hope he doesn't get mad. I'm like, what do you mean if he gets mad? He ain't gonna do anything to you.
Yeah, it's like, what is he gonna do? Oh gosh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Go watch fucking One Punch Man. It's so
Yeah,
funny. I'm
it's a,
super excited.
it's again, it's one of those like short things too, where it's 2 seasons. Like you can knock it out if you got time to like watch something. It's not again, it's not like a you need to watch this, go watch this right now. But like when you get time, you gotta watch this show. It's just
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm halfway through season 2, so I'm
hmm
about to finish it. So I'm hoping season 3 comes up pretty soon because I
yeah.
need to watch more of this
It's
more
been a
funniness.
long time for me, honestly. It's
I
it's been
heard.
like yeah, I don't even know. I want to say I was like back in like maybe even it's probably just like right after season 2 came out is probably when I watched the whole of season 2. Like it's been a while. So I'd be
I know
excited
my
for season
cousin.
3.
Yeah, I know my cousin watched it back in like the late 2000 the teens, and
Hmm.
he was like I think he called me up maybe a couple weeks ago, and he's like, dude, they finally are gonna make a season 3.
Hmm.
So he's been waiting for a while for it.
Yeah.
Which sucks because I guarantee you they already had a sub version like out.
Yeah.
And then we just been waiting for like a dub thing to come in,
Probably, yeah.
which always happens. Which always happens.
I think when I watched
Uh,
season 2 actually, I don't think the dub was even out and I was just watching the sub because I was like really wanted to watch it and it's just like
hmm
don't understand what they're saying, just reading the subtitles, but still just laughing the whole time anyway, because it's just so comedic. But yeah.
because of his face. His face says everything, dude.
Oh my
I love when
gosh.
they actually go in close and they show the seriousness, like the actual anime face.
Hmm.
But that's probably like 15, maybe 10% of the
Yeah.
time he's like that, where they just show like just a round like
Yeah.
egg shaped
Yeah.
bald dude with
And they
like
and
these
they do like
bulging
the yeah,
eyes.
they do like the if you've ever watched Rick and Morty, like the Morty face where like his mouth goes down and it's just like the like stupid like dumb face. Like
Yeah.
they have a version of that for him too, where like he's already got like a weird bald egg shaped head, and then like they do like the zoom and he's like, oh, like he's just like
Yeah.
whatever, and you're just like it's just oh they make it great. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. But I think we can end it there, man.
Hmm.
Um So, guys, if you want to watch the podcast, every episode comes out on Tuesdays. They come out on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock. Some people ask me, say why? Because, well, I wake up early, and I figured people who wake up early like me want to listen to something cool, so that's why they come out that early. So Tuesdays at 5, they come out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many other streaming services. But if you want to watch the video version, you can go to YouTube. YouTube is The Nerdy Mind. It's easy. I've been getting into some other videos, to short videos of like just some review things. I actually reviewed finding out that Static Shock is coming out officially. He's coming to the DCU, so that's good to hear. Cool to hear from James Gunn, because there was rumors when the DCEU was out, but now that the new universe is being made, Static Shock is actually coming, which is very cool. So I do like little videos like that. Yeah. Please like, comment, subscribe, comment on what you want me to talk about, what you want me to review. Hit the bell so you get notified at any time a new video comes out. But other than that, stay nerdy, my friends, and thank you, Jason, for coming on again.